سوف يمضي بنا مركب للوداع يستحث الخطى والدموع الشراع.
Today we're going to continue to discuss some of the keys that we can use to help us to practice Islam. Keys to implement in our lives so that we can become people who are not just Muslim in name, but we are Muslim in practice. We are living our lives in total submission to Allah. Remember, guys, what is the meaning of the word Islam? Islam means total submission to Allah. And what is the meaning of the word Muslim? Muslim means one who submits to Allah. So we're supposed to be living our lives in total submission to Allah, and we're supposed to be one who proudly calls ourselves one who submits to Allah. And in order for this to happen, there are certain keys that we have available for us, and one such key that we're going to speak about today to living Islam is understanding the relationship between the throne of Allah and the human heart. I repeat, understanding the relationship between the throne of Allah and the human heart. And this is what we're going to speak about today. First of all, again, Allah exists. And a lot of people say, where is Allah? You will find some people who call themselves Muslims, they will answer and say Allah is everywhere. And this is not correct. Allah is not everywhere. Allah is not everywhere. His knowledge is everywhere, but He physically is not everywhere. So where does Allah exist physically? Well, Allah exists physically above His creation. Remember, this is one of His names. This is one of His attributes. Allah, He is the Most High. So He is not everywhere. He is above His creation, and He is above His throne. And the closest thing to His throne is paradise. And the highest part of paradise is a garden called El Firdaus. Okay? Accordingly, the most distant place from the throne of Allah is the hellfire. So as believers, we should be living our lives aiming for that closest place, to be in the closest place to the throne of Allah, and that is paradise. On the other hand, we should do everything in our power as believing Muslims to avoid being in the most distant of places from Allah, which is the hellfire. Common sense. And when Allah created man, He gave us this thing that is called the human heart. The human heart. And the human heart, it's not the same as the human soul. Whereas the human soul is criminal by nature and attracted to that which is bad and dirty, the human heart is the opposite. The human heart is the source of what is truthful. The human heart is the source of what is good. The human heart is the source of knowledge, the source of love. And also, the human heart is the source of the desire to want to be with Allah. So thus, the heart of the human is the pivot point of his existence. Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning. For those who believe not in the hereafter is an evil description, and for Allah is the highest description. Also Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning, and He it is who originates the creation, then will repeat it, and this is easy for Him to do. He, His, Allah's is the highest description, and He is the Almighty, the All-Wise, and there is nothing like Him. Subhanallah, Subhanallah. These verses of the Quran thus illustrate that loving, knowing, and wanting to be with Allah, this is the true definition of the heart of the believer. If the heart is distant from evil, if the heart is distant from malice, then it is worthy to love, to know, and want to be with Allah. And that's the heart of a believer. The believer purifies his heart from those feelings, those emotions that are displeasing to Allah. The believer purifies his heart from jealousy, from envy, from hatred, from wanting to hurt others, and instead he fills his heart with remembrance of Allah. Such a person understands that the lowest description of man's heart is to love and aspire the life of this world. If you have a heart that is in love with the life of this world and wants to covet what's here, then this is the heart of an unbeliever. And a person who has a heart such as that, this is a person whose heart experiences feelings that are not pleasing to Allah. This is the heart of a person who suffers, for example, from depression, from loneliness, from envy, jealousy, guilt, doubt. All these emotions that will take him furthest away from the throne of Allah. Do you guys understand that? To simplify this even more, we can say that the heart of the human being is of two types. Either you possess one or the other. The first type of heart is the heart of those who are inclined towards Allah. These are the people who believe in Allah, who remember Him often. These are the people who know what their purpose in life is, so they live their lives trying to please Allah, and as a result, their heart is filled with happiness, their heart is filled with pleasure, their heart is filled with delight and blessings. These are the people that look at what Allah has given them in life and they learn to be content with it. They learn to make the most and the best out of what Allah has put on their plate. That's the first type of heart. The second type of heart, this type of heart is the throne of the devil. This is a heart that is filled with narrow-mindedness, darkness, sorrow, grief, distress. This is the heart of a person that suffers with jealousy, loneliness, doubt, unsurety, uncertainty, and all of this. You do not want to have a heart like that, because that is the heart that belongs to a person who is suffering from disbelief or hypocrisy. Okay? Listen to what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said. He said, if the human heart is overwhelmed by the brightness of faith then such a heart will be open and happy. And the people asked the prophet, they said, "O prophet of Allah, are there any signs as to whether or not a person has a heart like that?" He said, "Yes. If you are a person who desires to enter paradise, and if you are a person who hates the idea of being in the hellfire, then that's a sign as to whether or not you are possessing of a heart that is bright of faith, or a heart that is devoid of it." Subhanallah. Again, what we talked about for the past week. What is your purpose? If you truly understand what your purpose in life is, you were created to worship Allah, and you were put here on this earth to be tested in your belief in Him. If you truly understand the meaning of this, then you will fill your heart with remembrance of Allah, and learn to make the most out of what He's given you. And you would free your heart from jealousy, anger, loneliness, depression, and all the things that can take you to the hellfire. In short, guys, the brightness that overwhelms the heart is the result of being close to Allah and obtaining His blessings and His guidance. Because it is Allah's blessings and it is Allah's guidance that will make you content within the heart. Okay? But on the other hand, if your heart lacks these things, if your heart lacks guidance from Allah, if your heart lacks the blessings from Allah, then your heart will become gloomy. Your heart will become a narrow place. This heart will give in to the soul, and in turn it will live in accordance to its desires, and in turn it will doom itself to hell. You guys understand that? So the heart that is lacking the guidance of Allah, this is the type of heart that falls victim to the soul, and it becomes doomed. And that means it becomes further away from the throne of Allah. So thus, guys, as Muslims aspiring to become believers, we have to condition our hearts to become close to the throne of Allah. And if we do this, this becomes a great key in living Islam. Because not only will it bring you close to Allah, but also will give you pleasure and contentment in this world. As I stated earlier, you will learn to make the most of what Allah has given you. You will find contentment in what Allah puts on your place. You will live your life making choices that are pleasing to Allah. And you will become able to deal with the trials of life without succumbing to depression, without succumbing to sorrow, without succumbing to panic and grief, which all will destroy the heart and take you away from Allah's throne.
سوف يمضي بنا مركب للوداع يستحث الخطى والدموع